Slides going. Yes, the recording will be very helpful. So just in case you all are not familiar with us at AccessLEX Institute, we are a nonprofit that focuses on legal education really from three different lenses. The first lens is going to be accessibility, who has the opportunity to sit in those coveted law school seats. We know that we're working towards a more equitable experience for everyone who chooses to go to and desires to go to law school. There's so many benefits of having representation in our legal profession, like we see in the medical profession and other professions as well. Secondly, what my team and I think about on a day-to-day basis, we probably even dream about it at this point, is the affordability aspect of going to law school. Because as we're thinking about the dollars and the cents, it doesn't always make sense to us. And we want to make sure that individuals have an understanding that while yes, there may be a high price tag associated with going to law school, that doesn't mean that it just precludes us or stops us from going to law school. There are mechanisms, ways, financial aid that can help you pay for the cost of law school. Then last but not least, we do a lot of research at AccessLEX Institute because we understand that there is no lack of information on the internet, right? We know you have your Reddits and your TikToks and your Instagram. But we also want to be very discerning when we look at that information and understanding that everyone has an opinion. Everyone's an expert in their opinion, right? But we are experts. We have the data, the statistics, and the experience to help not just one person get into law school, but we've now done this for thousands of individuals to get into various law schools. And the best part about AccessLEX Institute is that everything that we do for you all is completely free. We don't charge you, after the first time you call us. Everything that we provide you along this law school journey is completely free. Now, I do want you to know that our website is AccessLEX Institute, and you all are probably very familiar with QR codes at this point. As opposed to putting a lot of URLs across the page for you, I am going to try to ensure that we have those QR codes. Therefore, if you have your mobile devices handy, you can look at the QR codes and it will take you directly there. But we do have a portion of our accesslex.org website that will take you directly to resources and tools that are specifically for individuals who are trying to get into law school. So that is kind of a one-stop place where you can go. But I'm also going to tell you about what we call our Powerhouse platform that also houses all of our tools and resources. So if you can't remember a QR code or you didn't grab it or you can't remember what the website email address or whatever is, you can always go to another platform that I will tell you about in just a second. Now, I call this a little bit of our cheesecake menu of all the things that we can offer you at AccessLEX. But while, yes, I get excited about the cheesecake menu, I know a lot of people do because there's just so many good options, but we understand that sometimes it can be overwhelming. And that is what I'm going to aim to do in this presentation is take away as much as I can that overwhelming feeling about having so many, that way you can kind of say, okay, I'm looking for this type of information. And I remember Taria said that there's a tool that can help me with that. And I also just got a message about my internet. So please let me know. But again, I'm going to try to clue you into tools and resources that will get you access to the information that you are seeking. Again, not just having it be based off of opinion, but having it based off a data statistic approach. And resources is called Access Connects. At AccessLEX, we love a good X in every single name that we do create, but it's an opportunity for you to speak with one of us. Again, we are experts in various areas of this application process, one-on-one for free as much as you would like. You have fantastic staff here at your institution that we highly encourage you to tap into. But perhaps you have a question about student loans. Maybe you have a question about fixed interest rates compared to variable interest rates. Perhaps you have a question about how you can work on getting your credit where you would like it to be. Everyone that you will speak to at AccessLEX Institute, we're accredited financial counselors, just means that we've gone through a process to learn all the things about personal finance. So again, about budgeting and credit scores and student loans. And a lot of us, again, are bringing expertise into this institution as well. So like myself, a very long time ago, I did go to law school at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. So I know what it is to be a law student. I also worked for nearly a decade at the Ohio State University in enrollment services. So I've done financial aid, I've done registrar functions. I know the landscape of the enrollment process. We also have admissions counselors that have come to us from various law schools. So again, we have expertise that we're just here to support the tools and resources that you have on campus, but you know what, your wonderful resources may say, I don't know a lot about, when these interest rates might be changing for student loans. We are here to help you through that process. Now let's talk about Ask Edna. That's that powerhouse platform I mentioned to you just a little while ago. You will see throughout law school, probably you're even seeing it now in undergrad. We love a good acronym. So EDNA just stands for Education Network at AccessLEX. And you can see that we have Edna. We have a bit of a caricature, hopefully to make this process feel a little less scary. And she does have her cat, Her Good. But again, if you're looking for a tool or resource, even access to myself and my colleagues, again, which is all completely free, you can go to Ask Edna and you'll be able to find all of that information and a really good kind of variety of things that can help you through this law school process. So let's talk about what you have access to inside the Ask Edna platform. Now, we do ask you to register. We're not selling your information. We're just curious about who is using our platform because, again, we want to make it as useful as possible, but we're not spamming you with emails either. We may give you an email saying like, you know what, this is a really good time of the year for you to think about if you're ready to apply, to hit submit on those applications, or this is a really good time for you to complete your FAFSA. Perhaps on a quarterly basis, we'll send you those type of emails, but again, we're not spamming you. But once you do create your free online account, you have access to Max Pre-Law. That's kind of the part of the journey that you're in right now, is in the pre-law space. And that, again, is going to get you access to so much more. You do have access to student success, and I'll talk about this for just a second. I'll go into, I believe, more depth a little bit later in the process. But if you're like me, so I'm first generation undergrad in law school, and this process was just new, and I didn't have a family member or mentor to necessarily help me understand this process. And oftentimes, which is sometimes in our minds and sometimes is reality, that we feel like we're a little bit behind in the race, right? And we at AccessLEX, our whole name is about access to the law, Lex being Latin for law. And we want to give people access to information and resources that are going to help them be able to be right on par with their counterparts who may have had a parent, guardian, mentor, family member who has gone to law school. So that's what we essentially did in the student success space that, again, you do have access to. So things like, how do you brief a case? Understanding how the judicial branch works, because not all of us are political science majors, right, when we go to law school. So it really helps get that foundational information in front of you before the first day of law school classes. So that's just a little bit about student success. But let's talk about Max Pre-Law. You see, essentially, we have 4 quadrants of information. We have choosing a law school, applying to law school, paying for law school, and building your law school budget. And within each of these sections, you will have tools, resources, and a workshop or webinar that you can go to that we hold at various times. You could also just go to the live online events if you're looking directly to participate in a workshop that is virtual. We have worksheets and checklists. And then again, that's time to schedule a meeting with a accredited financial counselor. Again, it doesn't have to be necessarily all financial if you're just curious about the law school experience. We do have some people that can talk to you about that as well, but we primarily do financial information about the law school process. We call these modules or lessons that you can go through if you really find that they might be beneficial to you. But again, they can be completed within probably 10 minutes, but they're really good pieces of information, right? Because again, some of us have never had exposure to this process. And so understanding, how do I get a good return on my investment? Everyone's talking about ROI, but no one really tells you how to do that. How much should I be potentially looking to pay for law school? How much, do lawyers make? All of that information is really important before you go into the law school space. You want to gather that information as you're looking about going to law school. And so again, thinking about admissions and financial aid, I will tell you, for working in financial aid for a number of years, sometimes it's like you're speaking a foreign language, right? And if you don't use the right terms for these certain offices, it's really hard to unlock the doors, right? And to get the answers that you're seeking or the resources that you may need. And we're trying to give you, again, that terminology, that phrasing that will help you, again, get what you need. We also have information about getting into law school and, of course, paying for law school. Here's an example for choosing a law school. So we will explore JD in just a little while. You'll get a worksheet or 2 or 3 worksheets within these sections. So we have the choosing a right law school, which is really nice as you're just contemplating which law school might be right for you. There's still nearly 200 ABA accredited, American Bar Associated accredited law schools in the country, and that can feel overwhelming. And this can be something that maybe you take to an advising appointment and you talk through in a more in-depth way of which law schools you might be interested in and why. We do have some information about residency. What we mean about residency is, like, let's say that you want to go to a public school, but they consider you a non-resident. Let's say you want to go to Arizona, or you want to come to Ohio, where I am. If you are a Florida resident, most likely you're going to be considered a non-resident for tuition purposes. And you'll want to think about ways that you might be able to save money. And again, that can be a very tricky process. And we wanted to, again, put some light on it. And that information's in that worksheet. And then you also have information about how do you establish in-state residency if that is an opportunity. And then again, last but not least, we have presentations that correspond to the quadrants as well. Applying to law school has a little bit more information in it, but again, same types of information. You're going to have a module or a lesson, some worksheets, a workshop that you can attend. But again, we try to group the information in a way that feels very natural, right? That seems very intuitive if you're interested in that particular topic. Paying for law school is really what we do best. It's what we've done the longest, and that's why you see you have so many options to choose from in the paying for law school section. Again, along those same lines of a worksheet, a workshop. This one's also really nice because you have things like the financial aid worksheet or the checklist. That way, when you're going to speak to financial aid, you can kind of have your list of things there, correct terminology, and you can check it off. Also, when the time comes in the spring, if you all are applying this time around, you can, compare, school A, B, and C, apples to apples. What are they offering you? How much is it going to cost? Some other considerations that can be really helpful, again, as you might be setting up advising appointments as well. Building your law school budget is a little bit of a smaller section. We do have that presentation, and then we have the monthly spending plan. This is more for when you're transitioning into law school. So let's say you did get admitted to a law school, you've chosen your law school. This is where we help you build that budget before you get into law school, because it will be some pre-work that you need to do prior to the first day of classes, because there are expenses that you will have even before the first day of classes that tend to sneak up on people. We even have a presentation now called the hidden and not so hidden costs of law school, because things like, how do I secure my apartment before law school? Because your financial aid is not coming to you until right before law school starts. What if I have to move? What if I have to pay a deposit for utilities? We want to be able to think about all of those expenses prior to when they become due and we start law school. Here are the worksheets and checklists that we have. You saw most of them within those quadrants that I just showed you. But again, choosing the right law school, letters of recommendation, sometimes it can be a very intimidating process to ask a professor, a teaching assistant, a graduate assistant for a letter of recommendation, but it's necessary for the application process. Therefore, again, we try to give you some steps that you can take and a little bit of a timeline as well on how you can go about asking for those letters of recommendation. And you also have seeking scholarship support. I'm going to tell you about a tool that we have for external scholarships in just a little while, but you will want to seek out scholarships directly from the law schools that you are going to apply to, and they usually make that information readily available, but you again want to be able to compare schools to schools. Here's a little bit of a snapshot of what those pre-law worksheets and checklists look like. They are all fillable. So we are advocating that if you don't have to print, that is great. We want to save the trees, but you can just save them on a device. And again, you can write in information directly on the forms. But again, we're hoping that it helps shine light on what sometimes feels like a very mysterious process. But again, it's just about having access to that information. And that's what we really want to do, is equip you and empower you with information. All right, so I told you just a little bit about student success. It really is about just leveling the playing field a little bit. And again, this is more so for once you have been admitted into law school and you're doing a little bit of that prep work, like I talked about, for building your law school budget. But again, it's really good information, even if you're seeking out, again, terminology related to law school, because that can feel like speaking another language as well. If you're trying to figure out, how do you prepare for, a classroom discussion, or how do you prepare for a law school exam? If you're just curious now, by all means, you have access to it once you do sign up for your free account. Again, it's the welcome to law school. Time management is also really important, even in undergrad, and we have some information about that. While law school can be very enjoyable, it's also a very stressful process as well. I have a few other degrees, and I always tell people there's nothing like the law degree. It stands in a class by itself, and it's just so much different than anything else that you will do. So again, thinking about how you manage that stress, but it's really good for us to learn how to manage stress even before we start the law school process. Getting the most out of the class can also even help you now, but definitely is geared towards law school, because unlike maybe some of your undergraduate courses, you will have an assignment before the first day of classes. You will come into that classroom on the first day needing to have read a case and be ready to talk about it. And that can be very different than what we're used to. So again, in discussions in the law school aspect is very different than maybe what you have done in undergrad. And while there is pre-work before class, there's also post-class work that you'll need to think about, because you'll want to make sure that you do have a good understanding of what was discussed in the class. And maybe if you weren't understanding the case accurately before class, you want to adjust your notes and your understanding afterwards. Setting yourself up for exam day. Exams are very different in the law school space. Traditionally, you have one exam for the entire class, and that can feel very overwhelming. Luckily, as a community, we know that things like quizzes and midterms, novice ideas that we have in undergrad, right, are actually really beneficial for law school. But there are still quite a few of law schools who only have that one exam. Because it's such a high stakes exam, because your grade rests on that one test, there are things that you can do to prepare yourself for success. So again, we want to make sure that we make that information accessible to you. And so here, just like we have for Max Pre-Law, you do have some worksheets and some checklists. Again, not to feel overwhelmed. You do have access to a lot of information. You can come back to any part of these tools or resources once it becomes more relevant and practical for you to do so. And they look a little bit more formal on the student success side, the worksheets and the checklist, just because you're getting so much closer to law school, which is more of a formalized process. But again, still some really good information that you can tap into. Like, for example, we use a lot of terminologies like 1L and 2L and 3L. And outside of the law school space, you're like, what is a 1L? Of course, the L stands for law student, right? First year law student, second year law student. But again, those terminologies that sometimes we take for granted that people just know, this can help you get a head start on that. All right, so let's talk about that scholarship data bank I lightly mentioned to you a second ago. We are going to try to get scholarships directly from the law schools themselves. That's really a major goal that we should have, because again, that will get the cost of law school down. But there are institutions like bar associations and law firms and nonprofits that want to help those who are specifically going into law school and that are going through law school to help them with the cost. Now, there are still nearly 800 external scholarships within our data bank, but you can filter these scholarships, and I'll show you a slide in just a second that highlights that. But again, it's an opportunity to find some free money that hopefully will support what you're getting from the law school, or really just help, get the cost that you may have to borrow down. What's nice is that these are scholarships that you can trust. You probably have heard of things like FastWeb or, anything else that you might be able to find on the website, but we actually have AccessLEX employees that are vetting these scholarships. We are looking at websites to make sure that they have actual winners. We are looking for misspellings on the website. So again, you don't want to necessarily trust your information to just something that you found on the internet. Here is a trusted site that you can really use while you're going into and through law school. So on the left-hand side, again, that's the way that you're going to kind of narrow down the scholarships that you might be eligible for. You can look at them from like the type of student you might be. Let's say, again, you're an incoming student versus being a second-year student. You can filter by that. You can filter by demographic information, legal interest type. All of that is going to be a way, again, to kind of narrow down the hundreds of results that would come up. And we also try to make sure that the ones that have deadlines that are approaching are at the top, and ones that have deadlines that have passed will be pushed to the bottom. All right, so let's talk about our student loan calculator as well. What is really important as you're thinking about how you might pay for law school is understanding the price tag that is associated with that law school, right? So as we're looking at law schools, you may have a comfort level of what you want to pay for law school, and that's what's going to determine where you apply. And the calculator, what's nice is that, okay, let's say that I have settled on Vanderbilt. That's really a website for their cost of attendance, but sometimes law schools give you that information in very interesting ways. I can even tell you from doing this from years of practice, it's not always to find how much it costs to go to that law school. So we've done that legwork for you. That way you don't have to go to 10 or 15 different school websites. All you have to do is go to our calculator, look up the school name, and the cost of attendance will appear. What's also nice is that once you start getting in information like how much have they given you in scholarships, have they given you a grant, you can also forecast how much you may need to borrow in student loans and what that will look like from a student loan process or student loan repayment process. So again, it's a really helpful tool all in one place, and you can use it as an aspiring law student, a current law student, because then that's when the information becomes real. And then even as a graduate, because you'll have to start paying back anything that you've borrowed in the form of student loans. And so again, it's really applicable no matter where you are in the journey. Right, so we do also have a diversity pathway program directory. Let's talk about what pathway programs are, because they historically were named pipeline programs. But our Indigenous community has asked us to move away from calling it a pipeline program to pathway program, and that is where we have made that pivot. They essentially, at their core, are to help individuals with a certain aspect of the application process or the preparation for law school process. Meaning, for example, if you are having some challenges with the LSAT, you can find programs that provide preparation for the LSAT. Or maybe you don't know what lawyers do and you're looking for a mentor or internship opportunity. They can help you prepare for law school in that way. So we do have our diversity pathway program directory. Let me see if I have an actual slide. I do. And you again can filter these because a lot of them since the pandemic are remote, and that might be something that you're looking for, or maybe you want a residential program. Perhaps you're looking for one that's attached to a school that is in Florida. I will tell you, we have a number of them that are in Florida. So again, you can find a program that can help you. Traditionally, you will do these programs usually your sophomore or junior summer. Sometimes it can be whatever the summer is right before you apply to law school. So let's say you're going to take a little bit of time off prior to going to law school. You could potentially do one of these programs this summer after your senior year. But again, it's to help you along this process in some way, some form. Here's again just an example. So let's say I was looking for a program that was going to offer me an introduction to first year courses. That's where you see 1L courses. Law School, Yes We Can is not going to be that program for me. But if I'm looking for LSAT preparation, Law School, Yes We Can will be a perfect example of a program that I could apply to. Now, AccessLEX, we do have our own pathway program, but ours is very unique in the sense that we are specifically looking for individuals who are having challenges with the law school admission test, with the LSAT. By challenges, we mean that those who are not scoring any higher than the 25th percentile. And people are like, you just threw a percentile at me. Yes, so no higher than the 25th percentile. Number one, when you get your results from the law school admission test, they will tell you right on that form that you get electronically where you scored in the percentile. But for ease of numbers, it's usually no higher than like a 144. So we're looking for those individuals. Our program is also specifically for underrepresented populations. So we're talking about underrepresented in the legal profession. So that is race, ethnicity, also socioeconomic status as evidenced by you received a Pell Grant at least for one term while in undergrad, or first generation status, which is indicated by a parent or guardian not receiving a bachelor's degree. So that is the population along with that LSAT score requirement that we're looking for. With our program, we have essentially two cohorts. The first cohort is going to receive a Kaplan course, which is done asynchronously. So it's not like in-person classes, but you get a free Kaplan course and you get admissions assistance. That means that we have a third party that will help you with personal statements and give you a list of schools that you might be a good fit for. So it's going to really be those in-depth admissions counseling pieces. The second cohort only will get a Kaplan course, and that may just be perfectly fine for some people. We do this on a first come, first serve basis, meaning that the earlier you apply to our program, if you meet the criteria, the more likely you are to get into the cohort that gets admissions assistance and the Kaplan course. The later you wait, you'll just get the Kaplan course. So again, think about if this program might be good for you. We opened the application in March. So again, this might be something you're considering. Here's what I just talked to you about. You have the admissions counseling group. You just have the LSAT prep only group. The other thing, and this one's a little bit old because we have filled our spots at this point. The financial assistance group, those are individuals that don't get the Kaplan course or the admissions prep, but we will give gift cards for information. So like if we reach out to you and ask you where you are in the application process, have you been successful in getting admitted into a law school? So we do need that information for research purposes as well. All right, let's keep going on our cheesecake menu of tools and resources. Here's Explore JD. And again, we love an X. So if you're looking for the URL, think about Explore, just drop off the E. So it's at xplorejd.org. But again, it can be very overwhelming to try to figure out what law school might be best for you. I think that I kind of lost count of how many law schools we have here in Ohio. I think we have like 6. That's even a lot of schools just in one state to think about. I can't even imagine like how many schools there might be in Florida. There's already like 4 that come to top of mind right now. So it can even be overwhelming if you're only looking in one state to figure out what school might be the best fit for you. But this tool is really nice. It's essentially like if someone was sitting across the table from you asking you questions. For example, do you know where you want to go to law school? Maybe you're thinking about going to the West Coast. Maybe you're interested in the East Coast. Maybe you want to kind of stay in the Southern region. Also, things like, are you looking for a smaller law school, or are you okay with a very large institution? How much are you trying to pay for law school? So again, even things that you may not have thought to ask yourself, this platform is going to ask you the question and allow you to start developing your answers, but also gives you information along the way, right? For example, one of the questions will be, how much do you want to spend on your law school education? You're like, well, I don't know. How much on average do people pay for law school? If you click on one of the information buttons, it will tell you what the most recent graduating class borrowed in student loans. So that's going to give you a good gauge. Do I want to be at average or do I want to be below average? But it gives you that information to help you make the decision along the way. Here are the priorities that are inside of Explore JD that will ask you questions along these category or topical lines. So location, and that's what our research told us, is that most people care about location of the law school more so than anything else. Cost is very much top 3. The experience, we're talking about the experience of the law school, not necessarily within the classroom, but again, thinking about the size, selectivity. So, what are they looking for? Median scores, curriculum. Are you looking for a law school that's known for environmental law or that is known for sending students into nonprofit work? Diversity, and then also outcomes. When we say outcomes, we're talking about things like bar passage rate, employment statistics, things like that. What's nice is that while, yes, you will answer these questions and it will build what we call a school list for you based on how you answer those questions, even if you don't see a school that you were really, really hoping would show up, there is a school library where you can get some really valuable information. But all the ABA, American Bar Associated accredited law schools, will be inside the school library. We do have another resource that is that you might find useful, but it's called Analytics, and it's very much bar graphs and charts, things like that. It's more for an administrator, but some people find it to be really helpful. It's the same information that is inside of Explore JD. It's just a little different, and you get data sheets. We also do update information that's just kind of a quick synopsis of information for all law schools and what we call the legal education data deck. But again, it's just kind of for those of us who like to get a little bit nerdy. And then we have a pre-law toolkit as well. So again, we have all these tools and resources. We have our Paying for Law School guide, which might be of most interest to you all. That is downloadable, but it's going to go through all the ways that people pay, things that you want to consider. But we also have things about how do you pay back student loans and all the tools and resources that you see here. We do also have, like I said, our live workshops and webinars on the topical areas that we saw inside of Max Pre-Law. But we also, again, as you're trying to think about how you can make yourself strategically more appealing to law schools, we do have the Applying for Law School workshop, and we have one specifically for underrepresented populations as well. And then again, because we're talking about return on investment for law school, we have your law school investment as well. And last but not least, we do have kind of like a quick synopsis of an infographic to tell information about the most recent class that has gone into law school. So not the one that has graduated, but those that have been recently admitted. All right, so that is all my time. I'm going to stop sharing just to see if we have any questions. Any questions that I can answer for you all today in the last kind of moments that we have together. I'm gonna pull up.
Thank you, Teria.
Yes.
Anyone that has questions, like Teria mentioned, you can either unmute your mic or you can drop any questions in the chat as well.
And even though like we went over the tools and resources, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about anything.
Okay,
Ooh,
so
yeah.
you just said,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah, it popped up. So thank you though. So that is a great question. I think that as soon as you are ready to even explore law school, even if you're not set on 100% of actually going to law school, if you are curious, it's really important for you to start thinking about number one, why you might want to go to law school. Secondly, also thinking about what this profession entails and how much you might be able to earn from the profession, right? So it's about exposure and it's about exploration. And AccessLEX can help you do that, right? I also tell people don't be like Taria that waited until first year law student orientation to find out what lawyers made. Sometimes it can be very shocking when you find out how much lawyers make. Some lawyers make a lot of money. They do, absolutely. Think about the median salary of a lawyer being around 80 to 85 about this work, which is fantastic. That's going to help getting a good return on our investment, right? Meaning that how much are we paying to law school, understanding that if we maybe a defender that we can understand for the future. So I think as early as possible, it's even using it. You might want to visit a Berry, right? Or you might want to, visit another law school that might be in the area just because you're trying to do some information gathering, and you can find out those law schools that might be a good fit for you through Explore JD. So I say that was a very long answer to say it's never too early to start, because you want to ensure that you are well informed about this decision and not just saying, well, I like law and order, so I should be a lawyer, right? Or, everyone tells me I'm good at arguing, therefore I should go to law school. Make sure you're understanding what this process and this profession entails. Great question. Anyone else? Well, hopefully you all will tap into one of our workshops and webinars that are on a particular topic as well, just because we get into a little bit more depth and detail about things that you should consider as you're choosing a law school, or, if you're very concerned about how you will pay for the cost of law school. You'll want to, oh, great. I'm glad that you found some use for that answer. So again, we want to make sure that you have access to information, because a lot of this, feels a little bit like gatekeeping, right? People try to hold the information to themselves until they feel like certain people should have access to it. And we go against that very much at AccessLEX. We want to give access to the greatest number of people, because it's not always about pedigree or socioeconomic status. That means that someone's going to be a great lawyer. It really is about a passion and a skill set that we want to, again, make accessible to all. Anything else? Yeah. So the email address, I don't know if you all saw that, is prelaw accesslex.org. So PRELAW at accesslex.org if you want to get in touch with me. I also do travel for a living, so that's the best way to make sure that you don't get lost in my inbox is to email prelaw at accesslex.org. But yes, thank you so much for that. But I'm the only person who answers those emails, so it's direct access to me as well.
Awesome, Taria. Thank you so much for taking the time to present to us. You presented a lot of good information, and so we did go ahead and put your email in the chat. So students, if you have any questions for Taria, please be sure to send them at prelaw@accesslex.org. And thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. And thank you again to everybody else who joined.
Alrighty, I'll go ahead and end the session. Alrighty, Jarrell, thank you so much. I usually wait for all the participants to go. You can go ahead and stop the recording now, just so that we can save